Hello, everyone. Here we are again. Back. I took a couple weeks off. I apologize, but I was visiting my brother in Oregon, which was awesome, and doing some work and traveling. And I just thought I would do something on the road, and I did not. So that's how it works sometimes. There's a lot going on. I first wanted to say a couple things about latest news. First, I think I found out about Cerner, potentially Oracle breach, and also insane. Cannot confirm that's actually a thing, which is also crazy by itself. But what we know is that in February seems to be a breach at Cerner and that they denied it happening and still have not confirmed that's happening, but yet sent notices apparently to health systems affected. So I don't know what's happening. It's crazy that they would deny it again and they wouldn't have learned at all from the change thing. So anyways, more to come on that, but you know anything, keep me in the loop or keep us posted. I will try my best. The other thing was I got notified by my friend Bob, and Bob had tagged me in a post of a physician that accidentally got a letter. It was not her clinic, but it was someone else's clinic, but she got the letter saying that if they didn't pay this $900,000 quote unquote loan from the change breach, that they were gonna, within 5 days or something, they were gonna start recouping the money through current payments. Which, if I'm a clinic and I'm not that large, $900,000 is a ton, right? And so I thought, is it so many questions there, but is it actually in the contract when you sign the loan that they could actually recoup the money in that way? And if it is, I guess that's, you kind of signed up for it. But I have to think that that's not what they were thinking was going to happen. And there would be some repayment time available. So just very interesting. I've also been hearing from several people that Change is very unhappy and potentially seeking legal action in groups that switched clearinghouses during that whole thing. So I don't know what's going to happen. I can see a whole legal battle happening over all of it. I'm sure you can as well. So we'll be curious to see how Change and United, UHG, actually goes about doing this, but feels kind of really sad, like the way it's all happening. So I feel for the health systems and the physician offices, particularly the smaller players that are going to have to not have as much power in the whole process and probably get, how do I want to say this, for lack of a better word, screwed? I don't know. So stuff to keep an eye on. We also had this week happen layoffs at HHS and some others. I'm not going to get political here. I do think, however, though, the way you go about that is not to just cut people's access off to the building and have a lineup around the building to see if I got laid off. That's not probably the way you do that. So I think all of that could have been handled better. And maybe they don't care. Clearly they don't care. Otherwise, I think you treat people better. Again, not saying there's not an inefficiency or that it shouldn't happen. I'm not saying any of those things. I just think you could treat people better regardless. So that's probably what's in the news this week. I wanted to do a quick review of something that I've used in the past. It's a framework called Johari Window. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of it, but basically it's kind of, think of 4 quadrants, and you think about the way that 1 goes to 2 and 3 and 4, and you kind of think of it as a square with kind of a 2x2. And if you think about it as it's basically a view of self-awareness. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately as far as getting older. I can't believe it, but next year I'll be turning 50, which is crazy. And I think getting older, but also kind of getting into that second half of life. And what my friends and I have been talking a lot about is the second half of life virtues. Stuff that you did in your first half of life, getting a job and finding your place in life and kind of doing things that maybe you didn't want to do, but you had to do to kind of make money, and getting married maybe, or having kids maybe. That's not, universal, and I totally get that. But all those kind of things in the first half of life you valued. In the second half of life, maybe not valuing as much, or valuing different things, right? Good example for me, I I did a fair amount of running, and I ran some marathons and a bunch of half marathons in that first half of life. And for me, it was like this great achievement, and I really enjoyed it. And the second half of life, well, I mean, part of it is I got hurt and I hurt my knee, and that was a whole thing. And then I had kids, and like I can't imagine trying to run a marathon today, right? Physically, but also just time wise, just not a thing for me. I found tennis again, which I did growing up, and I love it. So it's like, okay, well, I'll do tennis, and I actually found yoga in the last couple of years, and that's been super helpful for me as I've gotten back issues and stuff. And so it's this realization of like I value those things versus like I even stopped playing basketball, right? I grew up playing basketball, and I know I'm not very tall, but I can shoot. And about a year and a half ago, I remember playing my kind of last pickup game, and I thought in the middle of it, like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't need to be doing this. And so I haven't played basketball since, right? I just felt like it was time to hang it up. It wasn't worth the risk. I bring up the Johari window because I think it's fascinating around becoming more self-aware of the things that I know about myself. Let me walk through real quick. It starts with what they call the open arena. And this is where you know and others know about you. So I know something about myself and others know it about me. This could be for me, could be very much like I'm a really good community builder and pretty good communicator. And I think I know this about myself. I know it's a strength. And I think others, when they get to know me, also know this about me, right? Like that I'm a networker. I'm going to connect you with people. And I love to do that. I love to add value in that way for people. That's what I call the open arena. This is other phase, kind of like the next quadrant. It's called the facade. Facade. I'm not saying it right. You could call it like the mask, where you know and others don't know. So you know something about yourself, but it's kind of not known to others that you're actually pretty good at it. I'd like to think of an example, but I'm sure there's a ton. Let's see. I can't even think of one, but you can think of like something that you know about yourself, but you don't let others know. Then there's this third phase where really kind of the blind spot. Others know it and you don't see it. And this is why it's so important to surround yourself with people that will actually call you out or will actually like, hey, I see this happening. It's happened to me. Most poignant time has happened to me. One that really impacted my life. I was with a leadership team back in, this is probably 10 plus years ago, of a company that I helped start, and all great people. And we were doing kind of this thing called EOS, which we were in a kind of quarterly session. It's kind of a framework for how you run a business. They had one of these things where it was this exercise called the one thing. And this is crazy. It takes a lot of trust. And we had a lot of trust with this group. The exercise is basically like everyone has to write down one thing that that person should keep doing and is great at, and one thing that person should stop doing, or something they need to like figure out. And everybody goes over the room and they all have to look you in the eye and tell you one after another this one thing. So obviously it requires a fair amount of trust. What I got overwhelmingly was that I tended to, the thing that I needed to stop doing was assume that people knew what I was thinking strategically, because I would get very obstinate almost, and almost like angry that they wouldn't see what I was seeing. And it was this real clarity moment for me where this is a significant blind spot. And I was really lucky to have a coach, actually. I had a coach that I was working with and walking through this, and I told him what had happened. And really what was happening was I have this like real gift to be able to see strategically small amounts of information, knowing what's happening, and kind of see like, I see what's happening on a larger scale, and here's where we need to go. And in my mind, I just assumed everyone would see the same thing and that we all had the same inputs. And the reality is that of course they don't see it the same. We don't think the same. Maybe didn't even have all the inputs. I have a real gift for it. The challenge is I already had the idea and kind of set with like what should happen. And that's not a good thing. Like that can be a really bad thing, especially amongst a team. And then I would get like almost just, again, obstinate, like, oh, how come you can't figure this out? And then I could actually link it back to like a childhood moment. And that was also fascinating on a lot of fronts too, right? But it was this huge learning for me that I just had this enormous blind spot that I did not see, and others could see it. And thank God they told me. Today I can be very aware that I could be actually making a future or thinking this is what the future is and not really, and realize I'm doing it and stop myself and really gather everyone, making sure everyone's coming along and maybe having a different outcome, right? Where I wasn't right, and which happens all the time, of course. Okay, so the last window is called the unknown. You don't know and others don't know. And this is the space where I think for a lot of people, it's like getting into it's like this second half of life where you have less and less of this, hopefully, but it's also this phase of what I'm seeing amongst a bunch of friends. And this is just kind of like over this last week, I've had just a number of longtime friends either getting divorced or going through some rough times, and a lot of it feels like there was all this stuff that happened in their childhood and kind of in their 20s and 30s. And then they get to this other phase. And these things that they are the unknowns just start popping up, and they've never really dealt with it. They've never really gone through the process of like trying to figure out, or they did and then they didn't do it enough, and all of a sudden this stuff starts popping up. And I think it's just fascinating. Fascinating as in like, I guess I'm on this pursuit of trying to make sure that the unknowns are smaller and smaller part of it. And smaller part of like, and the blind spots are something my team can see and can call out at me. So I can get back to the open arena. I know and others know. And I think that that's just something I've been really processing. Probably, I don't know if I did a good job of explaining it all, but processing as far as like the second half of life, trying to figure out what is valued, but also eliminating some of the blind spots and the unknowns, especially amongst my people that I'm working with on a daily basis, right? Being a CEO has a different level of understanding of yourself, this self awareness of I have to get my team into this certain spot, and knowing them and their skills and just so important, and so much more important than it was in my first half of life, which I was really focused on myself, right? And like, how am I doing? Now I have to think about everyone, and it's just a different world. And it's exciting. I mean, I think it's been fun. So anyways, I don't know why I shared that today. Just felt like it was on my mind. I've been processing it. Yeah. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the week. Looking forward to seeing people in next month. We got a forum coming in about a month, which is great. We got 30 plus leaders coming and 6 vendors and all people I really like and some new people. It's going to be great. We're actually we got a guest speaker coming in talking about the science behind gratitude and the link between gratitude and innovation, and part of the Greater Good Science Center, which is attached to UC Berkeley. So some fascinating stuff. I'm really looking forward to it. And we'll be talking to you guys soon. Thanks, everybody.